15 years ago, a friend of mine told me about this young man who was starting an investment fund with a mission of affordable housing and making profits for the investors. I was invited to a luncheon for Fund I. And so I thought, hey, a free luncheon, why not? So I went and I left the luncheon thinking, wow, that is really a smart young man. So I invested in Fund I, I invested in Fund II, and between Fund II and Fund III, I became a minor principal in Elevation Financial Group. When I moved to Florida, I was interested in race cars, so I had obtained a sports racing car and racing for 10 years or so. But the real turning point came in my 50th birthday. I gave myself a 50th birthday present of a trip to Alaska to climb Mount McKinley. And my trip back from Mount McKinley, I was on the plane coming back, and I read an article about this club called the High Pointers Club, whose objective was to climb the high points of each one of the states, the highest mountain in each state. So that sounded really interesting to me. Plus I thought, hey, I've already done the highest one, and I live in the state with the lowest one. All I've got to do is get the in-between ones. So about 3 years later, I finished that. That started a whole new thread of interest in my life. I asked myself, what can I do that's different, that's difficult but achievable, and it's experience I've never had before. The mountaineering was also really important to be in good physical condition, so it seemed just appropriate at this point to maybe take a look at ultramarathoning, because that sounded a lot more interesting than marathons. They're mostly held in the backcountry on hiking trails, so that was a lot more interesting than road running. So I got interested in ultramarathons, and after the first 2 or 3, I could see that they were really going to be interesting. My first one was a 50-mile run from the south rim of the Grand Canyon to the north rim and back. Another interesting run was from the Atlantic to the Pacific across the Isthmus of Panama. We ran across the 50-miler across the Kenai Peninsula in Alaska. My first 100-miler was at Umstead 100/50-mile endurance run in North Carolina. And then what? Because this is the whole story of and then what's. What sounds interesting next? So when I was approaching 60, my interest returned to mechanical things. I found this club, of course, that was called the Iron Butt Club, and their objective was to do endurance motorcycle rides. I rode my motorcycle from Key West to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, from coast to coast, from Santa Monica, California to Daytona in under 50 hours. Another time I rode 1,500 miles in a day. I rode all of the high alpine passes in the Alps in Europe. I rode the Pyrenees. So there were a lot of interesting motorcycle rides.
This guy doesn't stop, he doesn't quit. He's not only run a marathon in every state of the Union, he's run an ultra marathon. There's nothing this guy hasn't done or won't do. And for that reason, I believe he's Elevation's most interesting investor.
People have asked me how come I seem so oriented toward risk. And I say, no, that's not the orientation. I was a very conservative engineer. We started with one person in an engineering firm, and 27 years later I was able to sell it, and that became not from risk-taking, but from going in every day and working toward digging the ditch a little longer. So after a while, even if you're conservative, enough molehills add up to be a decent-sized hill. So that's the way I lived the rest of my life. Same way with elevation. I got into it a little bit, and then it became more and more and more as my confidence went up and my belief in the integrity of what we were doing went up. I think I've had a lot more fun being involved with this group than I anticipated I would have.